sheds on our way.
All right, so now you should be able to actually hear us.
Sounds good.
Beautiful. Good, let's go back. I said at the very beginning, Ashley's running behind. So we just went ahead and started. We're going to sing through some other things. Let's do a little bit of How Great Thou Art.
Okay.
O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art, how great thou art, how great thou Welcome, welcome. Come on, get settled in. Get settled in.
Get to the mic.
Hello. Hi. Gone through most of the things. I'm here, and I'm happy. This is how I feel today. What have we talked about?
Nothing.
Great.
We've just been singing.
Great. Good. How's everybody?
Alive.
Blessed.
Good. How are you?
Take a breath.
You know, I'm gonna eat
Mhm.
while we do this because I feel like I'm gonna pass out. MTA
Yeah.
is trash.
Nothing new.
But thank God for transportation and modern technology and nice New Yorkers.
All right. That was the testimony. We gonna eat some food.
Good. Once you had a moment to get a chunk, a couple bites in, then we'll give them a little going up yonder. But before we do that, we can talk about the quote and the prayer of the week. So the prayer of the week this week is, "Thank you, Lord, for the saints who have gone before and those who journey with us now. Help us to never forget and persevere in faith, no matter what."
How you feel about that?
I'm gonna read it again because she was
I heard it. I heard it.
Oh,
thank
you
you
did?
for
Oh,
the
dang.
thank
Okay.
you for those that have gone on and those that are still with us along the way, and help us to persevere in faith
No matter what.
and
No
no
matter
matter what.
Yeah.
I hear things. I'm
Hey.
a mama. Has any Do you believe in spirits? You believe in spirits? Have you ever had a spirit visit, person visit you?
You know, I feel like I have felt. You need to be closer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I felt like I've felt energies around me before, but I've never seen like an apparition. My mother has, my parents have before, but I've never had an encounter. I'm like, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm okay. I believe. It's okay. I don't need to see it to believe it.
Yeah. What about you?
I couldn't tell you if I knew exactly what it was, but there was a moment. There was a moment. I was like, something stirred.
Mm-hmm.
Stirred. And yeah,
but not
and it was.
shaken. Hi, yeah.
She hungry, y'all.
I know. I'm trying to. Mm-hmm.
No, for sure. I think I have. How about you?
Definitely. I don't even know the name of the perfume that my grandmother used to wear, but I was sitting on my bed my sophomore year of college, and just the like energy, and she had passed away maybe like a year prior to that, and like the energy in the room just kind of lifted. There was like a breeze. My window was open. There was kind of a breeze. And I just felt her presence right next to me, like on my bed. It was so strong. And the smell in the room was her smell. Like, and it was so strong. But I wasn't afraid. But I knew somebody else was there with me. And I was just like, are you here? And it stayed for a moment, and then it went on. Then it happened twice. So that was the first time. Then the next time was at my aunt's house for like Thanksgiving or something like that. And I was she sent me in the dining room to get the china. And it was the same exact thing. The energy was just like kind of lifted, and I felt her presence right around me and her smell again. And I was like, you here, ain't you? And it stayed for a moment and then just went on. And I felt, again, like I didn't feel upset or nervous or scared or anything. And I knew it was her. And ever since then, I was like, you know how you're like, oh, well, so-and-so's up there watching out for you. And with the blessings that I've received in my life, there is no way that my grandmother is up there being just like calm and chill. She's talking to people. She's like, hey, that's my baby, and I need this, 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 and this. And another person that I feel is like watching over me, one of my best friends, her mom was like a second mom to me. She passed away from cancer. And she's another one who I feel is up there just raising havoc. Yeah, they're working. And so I just think that they're like with me all the time. That was my story. I am. I just,
No, and it's interesting to think about that and think about energies and kind of what happens afterwards. We don't exactly know. We know there's an energy that we don't know how to recreate.
Yeah.
That drives us, and it goes somewhere when we go.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm. And some people believe that the energy stays around on the earth for a while. So, that's why, some people believe that when you do see ghosts, they're locked in a pattern of living their life. They're living that same pattern over and over. And it's just the residual energy from them doing that so many times. Wow. And then, but their soul is going on, but that's just their residual energy.
Wait, so like that before they passed, they were locked in a pattern?
No, like after there's so much there. The way the energy disperses, some of it just stays in that pattern. That's what creates apparitions. But then some people do believe more of there are people that can go essentially go back and forth.
Yeah.
Because that would be I'd be a little upset. It was like, this is not the contract y'all told me about. I said, you're supposed to go to heaven. I didn't know I was going to stay down here the whole time and have to be watching after people.
What's the point of dying if I'm going to go
Well, and speaking of the song that we're
things?
going to sing, Going Up Yonder, that's kind of what it's talking about is a lot of this, we just need to get through these for a few years because that's where we're trying to get. Now, if we just end up, I'm still walking around and be like,
Right, like, isn't something else supposed to happen? I listen, I just feel like there's no reason not to believe that there are energies and spirits that can come back and forth. I mean, why not believe it? What's the harm in believing it? I wonder if my grandmother had come to me like in the form of an apparition, like would that have freaked me out? Versus the
presence.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the story my mother tells is that she looked out in the backyard one night and saw her grandfather out there hitching up the trailer, but going through those motions of it was just for a moment and then it disappeared.
Yeah, that probably would have freaked me out a little bit. Yeah. Like, cause you just in the backyard. I look back there and you just in the backyard.
Just in your backyard. Do you watch The Ghost Hunters or anything? Have you watched any of that? You don't like a lot of scary stuff though.
I don't like the scary stuff, but there was a show that I used to watch where they would go to different places and like set up shop and try to like communicate with spirits and stuff. It was interesting. I had to watch it in broad daylight, but it was definitely interesting. Yeah, I couldn't watch it at night though.
No, I could. It's one of those things where it's like I feel like when you start watching this stuff or you start thinking about it, you start feeling all of the energy around you. You start feeling everything. And that's the thing. It's probably a bunch of stuff. Probably a bunch of around here now. Just staying watching.
How are you? Come
exactly.
on, like right.
Because there's this TV show. It was a British show, and now I think they're making an American version of it called Ghosts, and that's kind of the premise. Yeah. And you see these ghosts. You see the ghost, but the humans can't see them. But you see the ghosts and their interactions with people and all. And it's people that have gotten stuck after these like tragic deaths in this house.
See, that's the part that I don't want. I don't want to meet anybody who is.
But it's a comedy though. It's funny. It's a comedy.
I was gonna say I don't want to meet anybody who's upset about their situation, about their past life. Yeah, I mean not past life, afterlife situation. That's bitter. I don't want to meet any of those people.
Unless it's a Lovecraft Country situation where it's like when they were in the basement of the haunted house.
Yeah, I don't want to meet. I don't want to meet them. I want to meet them after they have or something and
transition
come to a point of peace about where they are. Because then you're gonna be angry at me that you've passed on, and I don't want to participate in that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that would not be fun.
Yeah.
But what are the right words? I do definitely feel that. And to be honest, maybe it's a combination of a bunch of different things. Look at the world. It's much more complicated. It could very much so be a combination of there are some people who are still stuck in their loops, who are still stuck in trying to figure out how to get out. Even to look at people, because the people get stuck like that in their real life. What makes you think it'd be any different after you're out your body?
You know what interests me is that how can I say it? It's okay when we think of, and by we, I mean like as a church community in the most conventional way. It's okay for us to think about Jesus as an entity who has transcended but is still alive, right? But when people talk about ghosts or things of that nature, or like possession in other religions or spiritual beliefs, when they practice rituals that like possession of spirit and stuff, that in the Christian community, particularly the Black Christian community, is like that Satan, I rebuke thee, and no, we're not going to invite these spirits in the, but it's I don't know, like that's just a very interesting like point of view to have. I don't know if y'all think about stuff like that, but I just think like, well, what is the difference if somebody is filled with the Holy Spirit,
right,
versus believing that someone can be possessed with another spirit? I don't know if that's making any sense, but just things that I think about.
Well, yeah, because it says, I've been working on the communion liturgy for this week, and one of the responses is Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. And the distinction between Christ has died, Christ is still risen, Christ will come again.
Okay.
It's a small distinction. It's small.
But not.
But it's really specific, though.
Yeah, and why don't we think about... And I guess we do. The point of view is complicated because, and then a lot of people say, on earth, people live as long as people remember them. And
like Coco. Did y'all see the movie Coco?
We did.
I was watching that like...
Me.
What?
Crying, weeping. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly what he says. Oh.
Yeah. That's why, like, the Day of the Dead in that tradition is a celebration.
It's celebration, and the song we're going to sing a little bit going up yonder, because we were talking about this. We were listening to a recording, and both of us have only really heard it at funerals. Until I was listening to it, I was like, oh, they have. And then I went, yes, that makes sense.
No, yeah, I've been really getting into that idea lately. Like, I was talking to somebody about it. Just like the way that they honor their dead in New Orleans.
Oh yeah,
that's how my mother. She says she wants.
I want it. It's a party.
Yeah.
It's
because especially if someone's suffering, they're through with that.
Yeah.
We're sad because we selfish.
Yeah. It's like making it literally a home going. Like, ooh, they get to go home. I just think that's so interesting that it's not a more commonly practiced thing throughout, because it is such a I mean, obviously, sometimes people die tragically and, too soon and all that. But, like...
When you think about humans, it makes sense because we often think about ourselves first. So we put our emotion of we want to mourn for that person, not thinking about, actually, they were suffering, even though they're, yes, there are tragedies that happen.
Right.
But, if we go by what the Bible says, no matter how good this life is, heaven is supposed to be that much better.
Right. And then when you think about kind of the language, like in honor of so-and-so, in honor of so-and-so's life, but we cry, like you're saying, like we mourn them instead of thinking about it like, no, we're celebrating for you. This is how we're keeping you alive. You're still alive because we're celebrating you.
What you've accomplished in your life. What you've done,
or just like
how you made us feel when you were here. All that.
Like as a way to communicate to them, even though they are not still in this form. But like celebrating them, having a legitimate celebration of their transition is like kind of still talking to them, or it can be a way of still talking to them and saying like, don't worry, like we're not going to let you die. We're going to allow you to live. We're going to talk about you and celebrate you, versus the way that most people do it and have a funeral. It just seems so like counterintuitive.
In the Netflix documentary In Our Mother's Gardens, on their Dr. Coco, going back to Dr. Coco, one of the things she does, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but kind of summarizing essentially what she does, I believe it's like once a day, to honor the ancestors that have passed along. You know, when she cooks lunch, she cooks them a meal, and then she has a shrine, and she goes and places the meal there for them. And lets it sit out for the night, and then obviously you throw it. But like it's that symbolism of, you know, I'll make myself a meal, you can have some too, and still honoring through that every day.
Taking a second to actively, what's the word? Address them,
and it seems less woo woo. You know, like it seems that's very practical way of like, no, this is how I don't think of them as dead. I'm going to fix myself something because I'm living, and I think of them as still living too.
Just not physically here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's not practical because then it's like if they're not physically here, why they need food?
But you know,
symbolically, yeah.
Yeah. No, I recently.
You like we're gonna eat food. You said.
Why she eating food?
Yeah, no. See, Ashley, she be sneaking down the building like, I'm gonna take your little ball up and take it till it's fine. It's fine. You didn't eat any.
Oh, that's funny. No, yeah, I read All About Love, Hooks recently, and she has a whole chapter on that, about there is no right way, but you know, a different way to look at grieving and mourning, and eventually celebrating someone's life, and really it's mostly about death, and like not being so afraid of it, you know, embracing the good of it.
Yeah,
that's in it. You know, it's because we look at it all so you know, negatively. I mean, I get it, but like, no, yeah, read the book. It's a classic. All About Love, Bell Hooks.
It's red.
It's red.
Yeah, and it has like a
and
couple
it's all
on
in
the
lower
front.
small caps.
It has a
caps.
couple on the front, like in the front of a plantation
no, mine
or something.
doesn't, but I believe you. I believe you.
But I think I have that book.
No, it's worth the read. It's a quick read too, but it's so good. It's so good. No, yeah. It's all about perspective, always.
Everything is about perspective.
Yes. Can you look up the lyrics?
We're going up yonder. Let's sing a little bit. Let's sing a little.
Yeah.
A little something.
I'm just gonna be the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
the verse, and if you wanna.
Yeah. I know it.
You know it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you wanna know where I'm going soon, if anybody asks you where I'm going soon, I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. I can take the pain, the heartaches they bring, the comfort in knowing I'll soon be gone, as God gives me grace to run this race until I see my Savior face to face. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. I'm going up yonder. I'm going
go
cut
home
to my
now.
face.
No,
I was like-
no,
Okay, we can go home now. Let's go.
I like that song.
I just want to point out that she really was singing with the fry in her hand.
Well, because too, when we both first listened to this, started listening to this recording, Marcus looked at me and said, "Is that Ashley?" I was like, "No," because the recording I sent you, the original recording,
Yeah.
it sounds just like you in the beginning.
Who is
Literally.
it?
Especially where she places it, the one that I sent you.
But who? I
I
didn't
don't know
listen
who
to
the
it
name
because I
is.
know the song.
As
But it's
soo-
probably
as
the one
soon as
you've
you
heard.
started
You've
singing
probably
just
heard it.
now. I was like, that sounds just like what he played me yesterday.
Yeah, remind me to play it for
Oh,
you.
my phone is
Remind me
not
to play it for you afterwards.
Okay.
But yeah, I was when I heard it, I was like,
Is
Ashley?
it Tremaine Hawkins?
But just woman
But like
singing
he's a
solo.
soloist, yeah.
Oh.
She's singing it too. She sings it. She ain't singing like you, but she sang it.
No, if it's Tremaine Hawkins,
She just.
I know she's. I'm pretty sure that's Tremaine Hawkins singing the solo of that song.
Okay.
The original one.
Maybe. I mean, it's a woman on this one.
Yeah.
Oh, I just said Jermaine.
Tremaine.
Oh, I was like,
Sorry.
what? Jermaine? Oh, that is?
Tremaine Hawkins.
Then it's her. Oh yeah, so that's one of my favorite. Like I said, that way wasn't until I heard that the Cardinals like, oh, this makes sense because it always had a little bit of happiness, but even the funerals, folks be singing all slow.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't let it be Baptist.
No.
It was not her.
Slow as on.
But then I heard this recording and went, oh, they're having a party.
Yeah.
This makes more sense.
Yep.
She just ate it up, y'all. Literally.
That's
with the fry.
that's
Ate it up.
that is one of my aunt's favorite songs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's look at the quote of the day.
The what?
The quote.
Yes.
Is this Mr. Baldwin?
Yes.
If you know whence you came, there are absolutely no limitations to where you can go. James Baldwin.
Yep.
If. First word is very important. If you know whence you came, there are absolutely no limitations to where you can go.
I'm no James Baldwin. I kind of want to amend that a little bit though, because I feel like it's more if you understand from which you came. Because I feel like the whole idea of history is that it doesn't repeat, but we repeat all the time. And I feel like it's actually knowing it, but internalizing it, understanding it, and learning from it, growing from it. Like all this stuff that we're talking about stuff, even stuff that we physically didn't go through. What our people have gone through throughout life. I just read. I just finished the book this morning that chronicles her whole the main girl's her whole journey from the her Native American progenitors all the way until.
Oh.
Come on.
Somebody took their SATs. Maybe went to college. That's
Look,
fine.
The way James Baldwin writes, though, I think he means all of that.
Oh no, of course, it's James Baldwin.
Because when he says know something, he means it should feel real.
I'm just speaking specifically that because once you understand it, it's so hard to understand something that was wrong, that was evil, that was anything, and do it again. You know what I mean? So it's just making sure that people understand that understanding is a crucial part of knowing in order for anything to push forward is my thought. That just came out of my head as soon as I heard.
Well, that's also why it takes time. This is why all of this is taking time. And
I think I'm also a teaching artist.
All right.
And so when there was a time when I went to a performing arts high school, and there was a time when I went back there to teach, and it just happened to be during the time that this wonderful friend of mine, his name is Sangu. He facilitated this program. Oh my God! And of course now the name of it is escaping me, which is crazy. But basically he used theater and hip hop to help the students there, selected students, create their own show. As a part of that, he worked with AfricanAncestry.com, which is the, like, they do the swab and everything and help you determine which tribe. But AfricanAncestry.com is the only company that can specify, like, the DNA and mitochondrial connection between you and the region that your ancestors are from. And so I think it was like 12 girls that went through this program with him and got all of their DNA tested and everything, and were able to find out on one of their sides, depending on which side they chose, what region that line in their lineage was from. And I just thought, these were like 16-year-old girls. And I thought, man, if I had that information entering into adulthood, I wonder how much better off I would be emotionally and mentally and psychologically, spiritually, all of these things. Because when I think about that statement, if we know from whence we came, then what's the second part of it?
And there's no limit to where we can go.
Right. So most of us brown people of African descent who are here in this country we know the story, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that most of the families were like split up. So trying to determine, you could even go back. I mean, I don't know how far most people of color can go back and see where they come from, because it just wasn't recorded, because we were considered like chattel, right? But to have something that can tell you where you are from, I just feel like when you have that specific information, then nobody can tell you anything about yourself. Like, I remember, so from 2nd to 8th grade, I went to a predominantly white private school. And I just remember being in class, in whatever class it is that you talk about your family history and stuff. And I remember all my classmates would be like, yeah, I'm 1/8 French and I'm 2/8 Polish. I don't know the math, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm half, yeah, something Nordic, whatever. I was like, I'm black, my family's from DC, and like their parents were from the Carolinas. Pretty much before that, I don't know. We were slaves. I don't know. Can't give you much past that. And it was just like traumatic, like, to be sitting there and all of these other people, are saying like generations and generations of where they came from. And I couldn't. And because I was a teacher and facilitator along with the guy for this program, he did it for me too. So now I know that on my mother's line, we are of the Fulani and Jola tribe of current day Guinea-Bissau, right? And to find that out at I was early 30s, it like changed so much for me. And so just thinking, like, if I had that piece of information, if I knew like where I came from then, just how much farther along I would be now. And like, if every person of African descent in this country were open to and able to gain access to that information. Because let's not don't get me wrong. There are people in my family who I shared the information with, and they were like, I mean, I don't care. Like,
Well,
like I don't need that. I don't like. Why do I need that information? And just like the whole like psychological dissonance, because of all the trauma and the separation and the things that there are so many of us that are still like, I'm American. I don't care.
Well, that's interesting because I'm similar to that in that going back to the family that I knew, say, like my grandmother's generation and the generation before that, going back that far has always been enough for me. I don't know why, but like I was always perfectly fine.
Oh yeah.
In my, granted, that's how I've been about a lot of things. I don't know, like that. Going back that far, I have never cared to go further than that. Because also, too, I even think about sometimes where it's like, I was thinking about myself the other day, and I was like, me 10 years ago is a whole different person. And so going back, yes, I think it's good to know where it comes from, but like I feel like I'm so far removed from that. And yes, part of that is everything in this world that I grew into was not everything, but 90% of it was created for white culture. However, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing on myself.
Right.
I see that as part of, you know what I'm saying?
And most of my classmates probably don't feel like some grand connection to,
because people talk about the diaspora and this and that.
Right.
I'm like, I've never felt who I feel connected to is the folks, James Cleveland, the people. That's where I feel connected to. In terms of like blackness.
Yes. But I think there's also something interesting that I learned about like DNA patterns and memory recall within your DNA, because those two tribes that I'm from, one of them, you actually find them kind of all over Western and Central Africa, because they're like nomads. They tend to wander. We had a lot of wanderers in my family. The Jola tribe, they're very musically inclined. They are now, because we know, credited as the like originators of the precursor to the guitar. So they're very musically inclined. I have a good amount of musicians in my family. So like I said, like my classmates probably don't feel like some grand connection to their ancestors, but they know, and they were born knowing. So no one can say to them, you're this or you're that. I will say, like, even in my early 30s, gaining that information opened up so much for me in terms of like removing limitations in ways that made me somewhat anxious, because there was like so now what am I supposed to believe in? Like, is this what my people believed in spiritually? And if I want to internalize and be able to say, yes, I actually in 2000 whatever am a direct reflection or direct connection to these people, trying to internalize that, then does that mean I need to go and practice what they practiced so that I can understand that? And does that mean that I like how now I have this information intellectually, but now how do I go and internalize that so that I can claim it?
Well, and here's the thing too, and this is where that gets complicated, because you look at from their point of view, especially a lot of Africans look at, well, the ones that got over there were the ones that were stupid enough to get caught. They look at us a lot like, not all of them, but that is the common perception of black people. And some people also see when we are trying to connect to that, the diaspora of that, as a cultural appropriation in some ways, because we, especially, you know, we've been over here for 400 years. Another culture has been created.
Based off of us.
Correct.
Sorry.
You know what I'm saying? But like, but I'm saying like, there was a cultural divide when we were stolen, and a new culture had to be formed because they had to learn new language. They had to learn all this new stuff. Still taking pieces from there, but it was a new culture was created, and so I see how I can understand their point of view as well. Of like, well, you all have been over there for 100 years. Now you're trying to connect with this when I've been in. You know what I'm saying? You're
talking about people who are still
in Africa.
But I will tell you this: I traveled to Dakar.
I'm just saying it's not everybody.
No, not everybody. But one of the things that I don't know, that made a huge impact on me was I went to Dakar, Senegal. These people didn't know me from Adam, but they knew that we were American. And the first thing they said was "Welcome home." Now, nobody said like I did my DNA and I'm from here, but the first thing they said was like, "Welcome home," like you're back home now. And if you don't have family anywhere else, you have family here now. And it just completely deconstructed the idea that people from the motherland, that all people from the motherland are like, that they shun us, or that they're like, well, kind of what you're saying. And obviously, there are exceptions to the rule, which is what you just said. Like, everybody doesn't feel that way, but I don't know.
It's interesting. I get the feeling behind that, but then my brain goes, but my home is in New York, or my home is with my family here. And I think it's because, I think it comes from, I have never been eager to get into that culture, because also as a gay man, there's a lot more conflict.
Yeah.
Because like even within United Methodist Conference, the African churches were a big proponent of wanting to to go the traditional route, and they were like the big force pulling down the conference. And so it's like, because also it's like, my blackness is not all of me. That is not all of who I am. I am also a musician outside of my blackness. I am also an artist outside of being, because like when I think about writing, I can write things that aren't black. I can tell others, you know what I'm saying? Right. Like and the influences in my life, which I have great influences from white people, I think about my teachers, I think about that, like all of my life is not black. And so I do think, and this kind of gets back to representation, I do think it's because it's all kind of this big, ball of yarn that people don't want to talk about because of slavery. So they don't want to unravel that ball of yarn. But we need to get to the point where people can trace their history past slavery, back, and hear stories about those people and stories about all of this.
Here is another reason why. Because there are children in the world who think that black people originated as slaves.
Ooh.
That we weren't, that there was nothing
before,
of us
no
before slavery, that in the entire spectrum of the existence of people of African descent, they don't know that slavery was just the 1600s on
1619.
to the 1800s. They don't know that. They think that that was just who we are. And that to me is reason enough that even if we don't want to, or even if we have no interest, that we have to find a way to facilitate the interest or establish the interest, so that if we don't know nothing else or teach them anything else, that no, that's not where we started. Which is why sometimes I get very, I don't want to hear another slave story. I don't want to watch another slave story. I don't want to watch another slave song. I'm very particular about how often I engage with talking about our struggle as Black people or as people of African descent, because what about the part before that? What about the and not just like we were kings and queens. We were kings and queens. We were murderers. We were shepherds. We were,
But I think too, that some people like to try to ignore it because it doesn't look as glamorous as say the same as England at the same time.
Say it one more time.
It doesn't look as glamorous, say, as England at the same time. In terms of when you think about aesthetically, when you think about that time period, and you think about the way. Just nobody. Or let me put that back. When it comes to producing those stories, it doesn't look as glamorous as England, as the blah 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 and the ships on the ceiling and the
blah blah blah. Yes.
Yeah. But and I think again going back, where we need that representation, where we need not just actors and directors, but producers who can produce this and put the money into it and tell that story. You think about like the chasm of films that are and I don't want to say white movies, but that are written by white people, and most of the characters are white, and usually when I say it's written by white people, meaning it's from a white person's point of view. That's 98% of everything we have.
Yes.
And I think that's part of why, and we don't have to get into it, but I was going to bring it up for a little bit. That's part of why some people are getting so mad about the Dave Chappelle thing, is that this is what it feels like when content is not created for you. Sorry. Breathe a bit, maybe watch the whole thing, but maybe it wasn't created for you. Most people I've talked to that it was created for, they're like, yeah, no, he's right. But and so it's like everybody's gotten used to this world of where 90% of everything is created for them. And so when we shift it all, they're like, okay, you got your one thing, we got to get, It's like, no, we need to, the pendulum needs to swing back. They've literally been holding on to it. Yeah. And we need to let it swing back for a bit.
And I tell you, boy, oh boy, when that thing swings back, I don't know. It's going to be a lot. I'm excited for it. Like, I feel like we are.
Like
we are definitely in a swing of it now. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it is the ultimate game of like tug of war.
The talk about like a Squid Game. Yeah, it's that.
Yeah. Yeah, and
or this or more so that's how they feel what's going to happen if they let us get a little bit. But no, it's not that at all.
I think what I'm enjoying, is the variety. Now that we're getting more representation within the Black community, not just representation. Of course, that is important as well. Like, from the Black lens, from the Latina lens, from the Asian lens, like all of those things. But what I love is that even within those communities, we're seeing the diversity within the communities as well.
But with that said, we need a whole lot more. Because I was thinking about this with Pose, and like I started watching it, and I only watched like the first couple episodes, and I was like, and it's like, yeah, it's fine. It's got the cut boom. It's got all of that.
You better see it.
But it doesn't. It's not real. It almost in some ways strips away the pain.
Why do you say it's not real?
Or it's not that it's not real. It just felt like it felt too glossy and too. It felt like a performance and not like they were telling us important story. It felt like someone was performing this story like at not like, versus look at the movie Paris is Burning. I know it's a documentary, but and it's not about that Pose can exist. It's just we need all of that. We need all of those different representations, because then people grow up, they see Pose, and they think that whole era was as glamorous as Pose looks. No, it was not. Go watch Paris is Burning. That's what it was really like.
Right.
But back to what you were saying, just like people think we started originally as slaves, younger people will start to watch this stuff and think that's what it was like in the 80s. Like, no, that's not.
But I think it has to, the door has to be knocked down somehow. And just like the white lens is allowed to be so vast and varied, that eventually the lens of the trans community will become varied as well.
Well, I feel like I feel like within the trans community too, we hear a lot of one section of it. We don't hear, there's a whole spectrum of the trans community we don't hear a lot from. There's definitely for a vocal half, and then there are friends that I know that are trans that are like, I don't even know. That's not, that they don't speak for me at all. And so, I mean, and that's a whole conversation. And it's, I think even in the gay world is the same, and you go back to why is the gay movement as far ahead as it is because it affects white men. Because look at women's rights, look at black folk, look at. So
you said that.
It's complicated, but I do generally think we are headed in a direction.
Yeah.
That is not down.
Yeah.
Or flat, slightly angled up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things we talk about, some of this stuff probably won't even happen in our lifetime, which is sad. But I think kind of going back to the theme of we're not supposed to make it happen in our lifetime. We just push the cart a little bit and then go on, and let somebody else come push the cart.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way of thinking of it.
Mm-hmm. You plant a tree today so that your grandkids and your children will have shade.
Yeah, I get frustrated with that because I'm like, but I planted the seed though. I want to see it.
You're like, but I want a basketball.
I want to see a leaf or something come
and
up.
You
out
will
of
see a small leaf. Usually the tree will get to a substantial site before, depending on how late in life you plant. But the idea is that, and you think about this, our actions often affect far beyond when we are gone. Far beyond. We're still feeling waves from 1776 when they wrote the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, that makes me hope that I'm one of those spirits that gets to like
come back.
Just so I can be like, okay, that's cute. That's a nice tree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then go on about my business.
You're like, at least if I get to see the tree.
Yeah, if I get to
and see the family around the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a memorial service this morning, and it was, we was listening to her obituary and how she was one of the daughters. But by the end of the obituary, what I found most interesting was she had, through all of this back and forth and whatever, by the end was now the matriarch of the family, of her section of the family.
Yeah.
And, and there were about, there's about how many grandchildren? There were like 6 or 7, 8.
A lot.
There were a lot of grandchildren. And, how all of that can come from one person, from one seed.
Right. Did you guys know that this might? I paused because it might be weird because there's only one other. Well, there's only one other presenting female person in the room, so it might get weird for the males. But did you know that when a female is born, she's born with all the eggs that she's going to have. So her mother carried her and her grandchildren. Cool. The more you know. That's all. So a pregnant woman is carrying
3
her
generations, including herself.
The next 2 generations.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of why grandchildren and grandparents have such a bond.
Because it's like, I knew you.
Mm-hmm.
Carried
Before I
you
even knew your mama.
in.
Yeah.
That's something. That's all. That's the end of the story.
But
interesting.
Going back to kind of wrap things up, going back to it's what I take away mostly from this is representation is important, and it's important to, even if it might not be the most glamorous thing, even if it's a dark future, a past, you still need to know where you come from. Everybody, including white folks, need to sit with it. Yeah, you might not have made those actions, but that's still where you came from.
Yeah. And if our DNA as African people of African descent, if our DNA can remember it, I forget the exact scientific term for it, but if our DNA can remember it, then their DNA can remember it too, in some form or fashion.
And it often presents, that's where microaggressions come from. That's where all these things that people don't even know they're doing happen. And that's where I think grace comes in. And that's why I often will give a lot of people grace, because often they don't. So there are some people who are very intentional about it. But there are a lot of people who don't even know. They don't even necessarily realize what they are doing. They just kind of react. But that goes back to, if you know where you've been, where you come from, then you can recognize that. You can point that out. You can start to heal and look at how to move forward. And knowing where you've been, it's like, okay, I've been through all of that. I have all of that with me. Now let me decide where I want to go.
Yeah. Oh, lyrics. I know where I've been.
I'm ready. What is it? I'm ready. I want to do the first one.
I know. I'm gonna do the first
There's a light in the darkness. There's a night as black as my skin. There's a light burning bright, showing me the way. But I know where I've been.
There's a cry in the distance. It's a voice that comes from deep within. There's a cry asking why. I pray the answer's up ahead, yeah. 'Cause I know
so many on the way, but the riches will be plenty, worth the risk and the chances that we take. There's a dream future. There is a struggle that we have yet to win, and there's pride in my heart to lift us up to tomorrow. 'Cause just to sit still would be a sin. There's a road. There's a struggle that we have yet to and there's pride in my heart, to lift us up until tomorrow. 'Cause just to sit still when we are sin, Lord knows I know
where I've been.
When we went,
I give thanks to my God, 'cause I know
Come on, swell on it then.
yeah, because it wasn't coming out. All right, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. This has been a new song. We'll be back here next week or next Saturday at 5 p.m.
Yes.
And we hope to see you there. Also, Sunday morning service goes live at 11 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll have fun. All right, see you guys next week.
be blessed. I'll tell you, I have to. Like never before.
Why didn't you go to the bathroom?
Because I was like, we rapping.
Oh.